You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. Hello, Jambo, Karibuni Akwaba. Welcome to this another edition of the Pan-African Daily TV. And today we are saddened by the breaking news on the continent of Africa's eldest Pan-African leader, in the name of His Excellency Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, the first president of Zambia, passed on to the land of our ancestors this morning. The African continent is shut down. The diaspora is broken by this deep news. But we all know that we have lost a great leader, but we have just gained an ancestor. And what type, what kind? Dr. Kenneth Kaunda is what every African or Pan-African would refer to as one of the first amongst the freedom fighters. I mean, we're talking in the category of the eldest on the continent, and he passed on at the age of 97 today. So our deepest condolence to the people of Zambia and to Africans worldwide. A memoriam, or what we call the candification of Africa, would take place on the Pan-African Daily TV on Sunday. We want to know about, or want to have an eulogy about his work, about his leadership style, about his freedom for a liberated Africa, and even all those leaders at his time, what his work and engagement was all about. It is time, like we say, it's the Africa's time now. So even when our ancestors are passing on, we record and produce and rewrite their stories for the future generation, like Nhongo Solo, that is right here with me on the continent, or live from the continent, to discuss the plight of the African youth. And we're going to focus really on the South African case, but it's something that is particular about the situation of the youth worldwide. So our condolence again once more to Africans worldwide on the passing away of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, the first president and Pan-African leader and freedom fighter of Africa's liberation, who passed away in the land of his ancestors, Zambia, today. Today we have an exciting topic. So I want to invite all of you that are joining the stream, if you're connecting from our Facebook platforms or on our YouTube or other platforms, welcome to the Pan-African Daily TV today. I want to thank all of you that signed in yesterday on the topic with Ethiopia and River Nile. It was a heated debate, and the comments and the feedbacks that we had from it were very, very positive. For the first time, we could have an insight into what that meant in the 4th century, what happened exactly at the River Nile, you know, regarding Ethiopia, and actually what happened that Ethiopia, which remains the land of the origins, or the land that was never colonized, is still also facing a lot of challenges. Wouldn't it have been Africa's child, developmental child, that would have already spread on the continent? Those are questions that we all reflected on yesterday, and the reactions were very positive. Today, as we said yesterday, we talked about June 16, which was yesterday. And June 16 was the National Day of commemorating the Soweto Massacre, which happened in 1976, in a massacre which led youths, more than 20,000 youths, that went out to protest, peaceful protest against the implementation of the Afrikaans language in their classes, and were murdered and met with police brutality. So our correspondents from South Africa today is Nhongo Solo. Normally, as we posted, we were supposed to have two young voices that have been advocating and that have been inspired by this Soweto massacre to tell us their experience. And they're here to tell us about the plight of the Africa's youth, taking into consideration this massacre, what has changed, what has affected the life of the African youth worldwide, just like any other massacre that we've had. We want to know about this history, not in detail in terms of history, but the situation, the current situation today. So Nhongo is here. She's a social activist, a political aspirant, a voice for the young people in South Africa, and she's been doing powerful projects out there, trying to mobilize the youth and community and to stand up for a united Africa agenda and to stand up for the marginalization, particularly the students, yes, and the future of the youth. So her case study is really going to focus on her projects and what they've been doing in their community. And she says, if we really would pay attention to what has happened and learn from the future, so land should not even be a choice or a question for the African child. She says, what is really needed is the education, the consciousness, the mind, brain that has been educated, and to repositioning it to focus on Africa's ownership by the youth of Africa. If you've never heard this name, Nhongo Solo, you're going to be hearing it probably for your first time, but not for the last time, because this is one of the biggest names that you have to know when it comes to youth and development and political structures that are Pan-African oriented in the new face of South Africa and African youth. So we want to remind you of, like, Usman Touré in the Gambia, exactly. Nhongo Solo is playing the same role in South Africa. And we are here today actually to talk about how she came to being what she's doing, how she became revolutionized and actually become a warrior in the first front. She doesn't have any fear, just like our leaders and elders. She's the warrior queen, she's the warrior king, she's the warrior emperor on that continent, and she's not taking it for granted. So ladies and gentlemen, dear Pan-Africans, please welcome with me here live in the studio from South Africa, Nhongo Solo. Solo, how are you doing today? Hello, can you hear me?
I'm doing very well. Wow, thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for the invitation to the platform. That's a very powerful introduction. I didn't even have introduced myself like that. Um, I like the opening of giving condolences to our former hero, Kenneth. I think it's actually a highlight to young people that old people have wisdom, old people have experience, and old people have fulfilled their mission. And they're at a stage where they're dying, both physically and mentally. And it is now time for us to realize as young people that we can no longer just rely on them and watch them fighting our own battles. But we need to take as much information as we can from them so that we can actually take the baton from them and continue to run and fight and deal with the struggles that we are facing.
Mm. Um, Ndongo, it's like some visions come at a certain period. I mean, today we are hosting you for the first time, the biggest voice out there for young people, and South Africa is a critical case. If we look at the history of the apartheid, where you grew up, you actually experienced what we're saying. Maybe you not because you're young, but your parents and your forefathers. And then you are advocating for the Soweto massacre. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been doing, how you became into the process, what you're doing currently, what agenda you have for the youth of Africa globally. I mean, on the mainland and even in the diaspora. Over to you, Nhongo.
So, like you said, my name is Nhongo Solo. Yes, some may actually hear the name for the first time, but my dad was part of politics. he was the first youth president of Black consciousness in South Africa. And he named me Nhongo after Nhongo from Zimbabwe. She was the first woman who joined the struggle against colonization. And the name, and her real name is actually Joyce, the former president of Mugabe. So I'm actually named after Joyce, using her nickname during the struggle. But I actually grew up in a township in South Africa called Tsakane, and I went to a township school called Michael Zulu Primary School. And I think my political struggle and ambition and passion started when my mom gave me a sudden transition from a township school to a suburb school, or a racial school where white people from that school to a school. And I to question myself, why is so much gap in by while I was still at Nigel High School, I was one of those learners who actually advocated for equality and equity. One of the policies that we had at high school was that as a Black person, you cannot dye your hair to be blue or green or purple. You cannot wear what we call in our African language isakla. It's the skin of an animal that we normally wear when we do traditional ceremonies. And I started to question those policies to say, what is the color of a Black person? What is the hair color of a Black person? Is it black? Is it red? And the answer was the color of a person, the hair color of the Black person is black. And my question was, what is the color of the hair color of a white person? Because we are seeing white people in the same school. Some have blonde hair, some have maroon hair, some have all these different colors. So if Black people color on their hair, which is black, people must do the same. And if we cannot wear isipandla, if we cannot practice, we cannot have Indians practicing the same traditional original things. So we must speak about equity. If not, then we must speak about equality. But then it got interesting when I moved to University of Johannesburg. Not only did I struggle to access education at that point, but the plight in that was that I had to prove that my mom is unemployed. I had to prove that my dad passed away during apartheid. I had to prove that I am poor. But who am I proving this to? I'm proving to this very same government who apparently fought for freedom. The very same government who apparently fought for free education at that time. But the very same government that went through the plights and the issues of the society is now questioning me that, are you really poor? Is your mom really unemployed? But they know where we are coming from. Not only that, but it's the same government that is looting funds from every department. Yet they still want me to prove that I qualify for free education. So I got to experience those things when I got to varsity. At that time, when I finished my degree, my first degree was BA in politics, philosophy, and economics. At the time when I finished my degree, when I had to go and graduate, like every student, I was wearing my black gown. But when I got to the stage, I did not get a degree certificate like any other student. I got a white paper written outstanding fees. And that was the most painful thing that has ever happened to me. And that was 2013. And I think that is one thing that provoked me to say, no, we need to ensure that we fight for free, decolonized quality education. And I got to mobilize. I was done by then, my degree. But it was my first time getting to mobilize my friends and other students say, we need free. We don't need NSFAS. NSFAS is an institution that we use in South Africa where you need to apply to get funding for free education. But my argument was we don't need that agent. We don't need NSFAS. Government must just give us free, decolonized quality education. And that's where the struggle started. And we got to where we are now. I can say we've made progress, but I can still say at the same time, I see that progress made started to regress. Because if you can listen to news now in South Africa, our current Minister of Education is telling us and students that there are some courses that will never be funded anymore. So you have to pay your registration, you have to pay for your fees. So our students got short for nothing. Same applies when we go back to 1976 struggle, when young people were fighting against the means of instruction at that time in our education system. And you still look back and you come back at this time and you still find of that we were fighting against in 1976 now in 2021 in South Africa. Not only education, you receive a question paper both in English and in Afrikaans, but you also find it in departmental places where they say var. They still use Afrikaans in their platforms, a language that the 1976 youth fought against as a means of instruction.
Hello?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Nhongo, this is so according to you, nothing has changed from the Soweto massacre. Nothing ever changed. So people died in vain.
To be honest, the Battle of 1976 actually started as far back as 1653, when the colonizers arrived. And that's when the plight of poverty, the plight of education, the plight of lack of started. And when you look at the 1976 massacre and you question, has anything changed now? And to be honest, I would say nothing has really changed, except that we got, as Africans, we got used to mediocre, we got used to reform. And I will answer your question in a form of reforming and mediocre. Then you would say, yes, things have changed because we are now able to speak our own languages. We are now able to enter into different doors. We are now able to receive a question paper in English only. But if I were to answer you in a real, total liberated, revolutionized manner, nothing has changed, because I still go to school and I still learn all the languages in English. I cannot receive my question paper in my vernacular language. I cannot even question the question paper in a vernacular language. Nor can I still engage African soul or continentally in a vernacular language. The struggle of 1976 was a language struggle when they were fighting against the means of instruction. At that particular time, it was Afrikaans as a means of instruction, but it was a language struggle. And language is one of the fundamental oppressive method or systems to use. And that is why when you come back to South Africa, you will find that China is imposing to us that we must introduce their language in our schools, because they understand that one of the most oppressive way is to change the culture, the identity of the person through language.
That is hard, Solo. And this is actually one of the reasons that we are thinking in this new decade, Africa should own a universal language where it's across and it should start. And we have to learn, it. In our different respective countries, that we actually promote the use of our languages amongst ourselves, which South Africa does. And but it should be more than what we see today. You've been mobilizing a lot of young people. What is your reaction to that?
I think I did not mention that I am a co-founder and managing director of a youth organization called Abacha Force of Change. But my passion for young people did not start then. Like, I gave my history from primary to high school, going to varsity. It was so interesting. Well, it was very disturbing for me to come back from varsity and go back to my township and discover that most of my friends are now pregnant. Some of my guy friends are now hanging in the streets, getting psychologically defeated and resorting to drug and alcohol abuse. Seeing my very same township that I grew in, left university, at the time when I came back, the society has not only become stagnant, but it regressed. You are now, the very same schools that I was studying in no longer have windows. Schools still don't have things like school hall and libraries. And those were things that were disturbing. And I began to question, as we are fighting for fees must fall, decolonized quality education in varsity, you find young people coming into varsity not understanding the struggle, and we now still have to conscientize them. So we had to go back and say, we can't start the struggle at the top level. We need to go back to the basic at the foundational level. And how do we do that? And that is what gave me passion to start Abacha Force of Change. To say, Abacha Force of Change must be that civic organization that goes back to early childhood development and conscientize young people about free decolonized education, about consciousness, about African identity, about restoring our identity and culture, about colonization and how it played a role in the struggles that we are in now. So that by the time a student or a young person gets to university, they don't struggle in adapting to what we are advocating for. Or by the time a person starts to actually age, they don't struggle. And also, one of the things that affected Fees Must Fall was the fact that young people were excited to be on the street, to throw the stones, to and all of that. To fight for free decolonized education. But when we call them back, let's discuss, what do we mean about this free decolonized quality education? What do we mean when we say something must fall? What must rise? Because you can't just say something must fall. You then need to define what must rise. And we discovered that young people are not interested in actually discussing those things. They are interested in being on the streets and running and marching. And that is what actually disturbed the Fees Must Fall struggle. Because then politicians came to play to infiltrate the struggle. Then character came to play that infiltrated the struggle. Because you cannot fight for transformation and expect to get it from someone else when you are not transformed yourself. You can't fight corruption when you can't even account for your own 10 rand. So those are the plights that young people we are facing. We are not only facing the fact that our government or the politicians or the systems at place are actually killing us through drugs, through COVID and any other pandemic. But we also, as young people, are killing ourselves through ignorance.
Mm. Nhongo, in one of your mobilization campaign, you asked a very critical question. It's very unfortunate because of the connection is not really acting in our favor, but we will try to make the best use of what we can today. And so all the videos that we would have been displaying here to our viewers to show exactly your work on the ground, we will have to do it maybe in a trailer and post for others to, yes, to follow up. It's crazy how we are getting all this interference, but we will get there. You made a statement and you asked a very important question in one of your recent campaigns, and about what is important to you young people on the continent. Is it land or education? Over to you.
I think that question is a very important question, because if you look at what political parties are doing, not only in South Africa, but the entire continent of Africa, they are all advocating for land. Nothing wrong with that at all. But it's important to ask, what comes first? Is it land or is it education first? And I'll make a practical example with political parties in South Africa. None of the political parties are talking about the importance of education. Because for me to understand what is land, I must first be educated about it.
Correct.
And we talk about education, we are not talking about a pen and a paper like we have been deceived in our society.
Mm.
Education is broad, and so we need to conscientize each other about what is land on its own is broad. You're rated. Then we begin to understand what land is all about. You will find political parties in South Africa advocating for land, and you see them taking land and they put shacks and they live in shacks. Is that our African identity? No. Because in our African identity, there was never CTM. There was never cash build. Yet our forefathers had houses. What happened? They used natural resources. There was never Woolworths, there was never Pick and Pay, there was never Spar, there was never ShopRite. Yet our forefathers ate and even lived longer. Through what? Through land. But you need to understand that for you to take back your land as Africans, we need to conscientize each other about the use of the land.
Correct.
We need to conscientize each other about the plan of how do we get back our land. Otherwise, then we'll make the same mistake. We'll make the same mistake that we did during Fees Must Fall, where we advocate for free decolonized quality education before conscientizing each other. And then the struggle collapsed, and at the point where we are now, it even regressed. Or we will even further make the same mistake of where Zimbabwe is right now, where they advocated for land, but did not have a proper plan or full consciousness of how do we go about taking land and fighting against the retaliation of the bourgeoisie systems or the imperialist systems.
Mm-hmm.
So education is the fundamental liberation.
Yes.
Where we educate each other, conscientize each other enough as Africans, unitedly so, on how do we then overthrow the system, not reform the system, but overthrow the system. And I do not deny the fact that for us to overthrow the system or to revolutionize, we don't wake up tomorrow and say, hey, revolution. we have to take transitional steps and programs for us to get to where we want to be. For example, one of the biggest transitional steps that we have to take, where I see United, how am I forgetting this? The whole body of Africa, where the African Union, the first step that they should take, or one of the important steps that they should take, is to collapse the borders that we have and begin to recognize that we are Africans. And within our identity, see beyond our tribes, see beyond what the colonizers have made us, see beyond the divisions that have been introduced to us. And that is what we call transitional revolutionary programs, where you begin to do program by program by program until we get to a point where we overthrow the system.
This is deep. I mean, to all of us that are joining and watching, you can already understand when I said, if you think about Ousmane Touré in the Gambia, you need to start paying attention to Nhongo Solo in South Africa. Now, I asked one question when I met Solo this morning, and for all our viewers, she has been recommended to us on the Pan-African Daily as a correspondent to South Africa by King Maponga Joshua. So you can understand where this queen and warrior is coming from. So it is very important for us to start situating, like we say, giving on the battle to our young people. So Nhongo Solo, we are putting focus on her to be the president of South Africa in the nearest future. Now, I came back to you, Nhongo, and I asked, today we have Honorable Julius Malema, and we hear the young people are actually looking up to Honorable Malema as one of those that would change the South African mindset and even the young people on the continent. What is your position on that?
Firstly, I want to also acknowledge that and give gratitude to King Joshua Maponga and declare or give a disclaimer that he's actually my mentor, my political mentor, as I'm contesting for local elections. And he's also contesting as a presidential candidate in Zimbabwe, come 2022-2023 elections. And all the best to him. Coming to your question, Julius Malema comes from the political party called African National Congress, labeled as a liberation party. And indeed, young people are looking up to him because he's one of the radical leaders that we have. Or maybe I should be actually controversial. He was one of the radical leaders that we had in South Africa. At my age, the first time I recognized Malema as a political figure, it was when he was advocating for former President Thabo Mbeki to be outcasted out of African National Congress before the end of his term. And I was actually disappointed to hear a young person doing that to a president at that time. And I began to follow him at depth as to what he's actually advocating for. I think Africans or South Africans that one of the mistakes National Congress made was to actually fire him, whether it was fire him or to start a new political party. At the point when economic freedom fighters were started, Julius Malema was actually advocating for revolution. But the tone has changed from revolution to reforming. We are talking about the same guy who now has members of parliament, young members of parliament, that were part of FISMA's fall, and they're saying nothing about free decolonized quality education. We are talking about the same person who was fighting for revolution and taking over the land. Yet he's telling young people who are looking up to him, and he's saying, go, occupy the land, put your shacks there and live there. How do you do that as an African leader? When the land, when our forefathers had proper houses, proper yards, and were able to even plow and do agriculture in that land. So we need to get to a point where, as Africans, we come together and talk about real solutions that go beyond reforming, that go beyond mediocre, but also that go beyond corruption. Because if you mention Julius Malema, this is the same inspiring gentleman, Africanist, that said before he went to parliament, why do we have this statue in parliament that is not representing our African history? He said, why do we have medical aids as parliamentarians that are so expensive? I will not use that medical aid when I get to parliament. Where is he now? Same guy who's using the same medical aid. Same guy who's no longer talking about the statue outside parliament. This is the same guy who went into parliament wearing an overall representing the working class. What is he wearing now as we speak? Expensive things, not African orientated, not organic. And there's a difference between what you say and what you do, which then questions the character. So leaders like Julius Malema are one of the good leaders that get swallowed by the system. Because as young people, we make a big mistake of wanting to challenge the system. Yet we don't those who tried to challenge the system is to challenge the system. We don't trial and test our own. We don't even go through mentorship. So we find ourselves drowning in alcohol and drug abuse, yet we want to be leaders that will then try to fight against alcohol and drug abuse. Some of the things that we lack as young people, we lack to invest in the process over and above the event. We want to see ourselves achieving, getting what we want, but we don't invest in the process of what then happens should I get where I want to be. How do I deal with elements of corruption in me? The fact that I can steal a pen says something about me being a state president. Then I may even steal money and tax. So we need to get to a stage where, as young people, we invest in process. And we need old people also to invest in us as young people. Because we have parliamentarians right now who are way old, actually dying literally while they are sitting in their parliamentary seats with their eyes closed. Because they failed to mentor their successors. So there is a gap between the old and the young.
Absolutely.
And as Africans, we need to find a way on how we close that gap. So that should we have people like Julius Malema who have so much great potential for Africa and passion for Africa. He spoke something very powerful at the Pan-African Parliament lately on how we should not compromise on African principles. All people should have been there to mentor him, to direct him, to shield
Correct.
him,
Yes.
and ensure that at the time where he is now, the character is intact with the leadership skills.
This is very profound. This is so profound. Where do you see that problem? Do you see it as a part of our African principles, the need not to hand power? Even if you look at in our relationships, do you think our elders, starting from, like you said, the early child education, gives the authority for the kids and the young ones to start even questioning what they do around? I mean, I'm just saying in the home. I can remember when we were growing up, or when you were growing up, could you just question an elder and in the need to know? Do you see that all these challenges are coming from this inability for the elders, starting from parenthood, to give that rite of passage to their children to even question things because they want to know? And so the need for power is corrupted, that they even die there and forget to pass it over. What is that? Accordingly to our principles, the lack of development, or what is that?
I think as young Africans, we must acknowledge that our continent and our country in South Africa is wounded from the plights of the past, from colonization, from apartheid policies. Our elders are wounded. And one of the profound saying is that a person that has been oppressed is actually a potential oppressor. Mm-hmm. And I find that very profound because you get to parent your child almost in the same method you were parented.
Absolute. Correct.
So our parents are coming from a generation, and our grandparents, where they were so oppressed, and that they lost identity, because it was the agenda of the colonizer and the oppressor to redefine them. And they got redefined, and in that redefinition, they got oppressed. They were given a new identity, a new culture, a new moral, new ethic. And in that process, they then found themselves parents. They became parents, and they then transferred that which the oppressor has given them to their kids, which is now our parents. And our parents are transferring that which they have received from their parents. Because we have lost our African principles, our African identity, our African culture, our African ethics and morals. So as young people, I think as a nation, we need to then first accept that we have a problem, we are wounded. And it's the first step, accept that we are wounded, we are psychologically defeated. And we then discuss, how do we then rectify that mistake? How do we then come back and heal from those wounds? And there must be a generation that is prepared to do that. And that is why Frantz Fanon would say, each generation must discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it. And that there must be a generation that actually accepts that we are at this particular point and we are willing to sacrifice for the next generation, achieve nothing as the current generation, but sacrifice for the next generation. And at the point where we are right now, we haven't had that generation that is willing to sacrifice. We can even go back to the 1994 Mandela stunt, where himself and his generation were not willing to sacrifice that which they would have enjoyed. He could have came out of jail and take over the land and take over the resources and die if he has to die. together with his generation, but he would have, and the generation would have sacrificed for the next generation. But even back from 1994 to now to date, no generation has been willing to sacrifice for the next generation. And we don't understand that, in fact, is a leader that accepts that what I'm fighting for.
If you're joining us lately on this panel and this conversation tonight, we're talking to Nhongo Solo of South Africa, the next political aspirant at the community level, but also the biggest voice that is going to define the narratives and the way forward for South Africa in the near future. So you begin to know who your voices are, your advocates are. And I said, if you think about Usman Ture, then you think about Nhongo Solo. And we'll be getting back to you shortly, but I just want to bring again this very, very sad announcement that I made in the beginning, that we deeply regret the passing away of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, one of the eldest leader, freedom fighter, president, Pan-Africanist, that passed on this morning early in the land of his ancestors, Zambia. I'm sorry, I want to say Zimbabwe. So our condolence with the people of Zambia, but Africans worldwide. And the Pan-African Daily TV is organizing a memorial and ideology about his works and his engagement, and what is it that the young people, like Nhongo is saying, it is the generation of sacrifice to give over to the next future. What is it that we want to learn on what we call the coundification of Africa on Sunday? So we are calling on all of you to join us on this very special. We'll be having prominent guests and also voices, young voices, to talk about what they learned from his leadership. Dr. Kenneth and Excellency Kenneth Kaunda passed on at the age of 97, a very ripe age, and his passation or his journey to our ancestors was a very peaceful one, we reported about, and we could also see it even in his late. Yeah, we saw him dancing with his people. That is the spirit of an ancestor that has just gone home. So we're calling on all Africans worldwide to tune in on Sunday on this very special. We're going to rewrite the history of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, aka KK. Yes, KK, and give a new face to Zambians and young Africans through his legacy on Sunday, June, here live on the Pan-African Daily TV. Yes. So we're continuing on this very conversation today. Our conversation goes in the light of the Soweto Massacre 1976, and the original topic that we're focusing on is the plight of the youth of Africa and the way forward. Joining us live on the Pan-African Daily TV from South Africa, we have Queen Nhongo Solo, who is championing the cause and putting education as the first step for that to happen in her generation and the generations to come on the continent of Africa. Yes, we'll go back live again in the studio and take it from there. If you're joining in, it has been a wonderful conversation. I know you will have to watch it from the beginning after this production. There's been some technical setback, but we're going to chop up all those spaces, and that's why you see we give her a wait and she continues. So thank you, Patricia Sirim and Naisha Melkon and Tumi Tata, who is also assisted by Jem, a friend of Tumi, that have been working on this program here. Yes, Jem is also the content creator of what you hear on our sound on the Pan-African Daily TV. At the right time, we're going to be bringing them live on the Pan-African Daily TV Youth Forum to talk about the creation of what they're all doing here. So thank you all for joining. Now, back to studio with you, Nhongo. I saw a big podium that you put out there and also some upcoming events. Now we're talking about the Juneteenth that is also coming on Saturday live on the Pan-African Daily TV. These are huge days that should be considered national days, national vacations, or holidays worldwide for Africans. June 16th, that was yesterday, should be normally taken into the Pan-African calendar, and we're seeing June 10th coming up again on Saturday. That's also one of the most important dates that should be taken into the national calendar for Pan-Africanism. Now we're also just seeing that Dr. Kenneth, so we're going to have the Coundification Day that is coming up. We're also going to have the Kunta Kinte Day that came up. We also know about the Magolification Day that transited, and all this date. Now, is June 10th or the Freedom Fighter Day just a day that should be for South Africa, or a worldwide day like we're saying? Over to you, Nhongo.
I'll take it from where you started with leader Kaunda Kenneth. May his light,
Yes.
may his spirit continue to multiply. I think he has inspired so many people, as much as we continue to be inspired by those who continue to live, your Prof. Lumumba, your King Mabonga, your Dr. Omar, and all of them. Condolence to the society, to Zambia, and to the continent at large. So when it comes to national events, June the 10th, June 16th, and all these important events, I think we have been failed by our leaders, by our government, not to recognize these important dates as African dates, as worldwide dates, and not just states dates.
Mm.
It's sad that to date we are commemorating June 16th at a small scale. We are commemorating June the 10th at a small scale, when we are
Yes.
actually supposed to commemorate them at a very large scale. But I think the biggest betrayer in our society is a leader that does not only steal from himself, but steals from the next generation.
Mm.
By distorting history, you are already stealing from the next generation.
Yes.
Not only have they gone that limited, they have gone as far as indebting the next generation.
Mm.
In South Africa, for example, you find that during COVID-19, and even before, by the way, our own government that is leading right now has made so many loans from the IMF, International Monetary Fund, from the World Bank, that even consider the fact that whether they will lose elections or not, or whether they will die tomorrow, as old people as they are. But what they did is that they have indebted us as young people. That even when we were even prepared to take revolution in a specific form, we remain to have those debts because they have indebted us already. So the biggest plight in Africa is the fact that we have leaders who are stealing from the next generation and not sacrificing for the next generation.
Mm.
Stealing through distorting history, stealing economically, stealing politically, stealing educationally. If you give us education, produce, that does not make us think, that does not make us to question, to ask, but is only teaching us to be obedient slaves and to receive. They are stealing from us in so many ways. Events like these are not at a larger scale.
Mm.
Actually, I got to a point where I stopped being angry at our government in South Africa.
Mm.
But I started to be angry at people who continue to vote for the very same government. because they have continuously proven they have no interest. And even if you claim that we are voting for Mandela, who liberated, for example, as an elder, what is your passion for your kids? Where is your passion for your grandchildren?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are voting for the past because you don't have a future, you are dying, then you don't have love, compassion, Ubuntu philosophy enough for your children and your grandchildren.
Mm-hmm. Correct. You said something, and I would like us to come back on that. The indebtedness, this debt. Now, it's impossible. It is impossible. We would have to come up, or your generation, your policy makers would have to come up to a point where any debt on the continent that is being signed should be in the timeline of who signed that debt. After that, if that person is not there, those debts are cancelled. There would be no situation where debts would be passed over. Where do we see that happen? It starts even just from this stealing that you are saying of the mind. Who goes to the bank and takes a loan on a private, and then it has to automatically be passed to your children, apart from a generation of a people that also are giving these loans with this, I don't know, with this mindset of stealing the youth, people that have been used as the GDP as a collateral. Do you see in your generation and policymakers that these things would have to be regulated? If I go and take my loan and anything happens to me, it's a bad debt. Or why would it be transferred to the next generation and we keep generation upon generation incurring loans? What is your take on that in terms of policy making, particularly when we're redressing all these things to give it up to the future?
And I think one of the most important questions out of what you are asking from me now is, why do we even have to take a loan for our own property in our own land?
Correct.
Why do I have to go to the bank and take a bond and pay it for 20 years in my own land? When our own forefathers built their own houses in their own land at even a larger yard or scale.
Yes.
And when we speak about transitional revolutionary programs as young people, that is also another point of departure also. To say, do you need to go and take a bond for your property? No. Let's all stop as young people to take a loan for our houses. Let's stop. Instead, with the money that we are planning to pay that house on a monthly basis, stay home and plan to build your house. At the point where you are ready, build. And build in your land. Then it comes to the question that we are asking, regulations. Because at a point where I have money and I want to go, someone is regulating, not own that land. But who is that person that's regulating me? And one of the arguments we had lately with my friends was that as long as Africans, we don't have a regulationary body, we will continue to be regulated by the colonizers. And at the point where we are regulated by them, we need to accept that they don't have us at their best interest. Their best interest is profits. And that is why when you take a loan, not only does it get transferred at the time you die, look at the oppression it does in you while you're still alive. The high interest rate that you have to pay. Yet we have a government that is supposedly has an ability to regulate any other private sector in our land. Yet that private sector is regulating the government and the society at large. So there's so much disorder that we need to do a long-term introspection. That we need to do a thorough introspection and a thorough consciousness. When colonization and apartheid came in our country or in our continent, they taught a young child that, look, my child, this is a kafir. This black person is not important. So until we go back and teach the young ones how to behave, what to do, what is African identity, then we'll keep on being in the vicious circle. We'll just be in that vicious circle. Because there must be a generation that is prepared to sacrifice, so that we then begin to overthrow. And so I think let's engage. Let's at least accommodate Christians for a bit. Even the Bible says, for as long as we are a borrower, you remain to be a slave. And our Africa are borrowers, and automatically they are slaves. So we continue to debate about the big house I have, the big car I have, the most expensive clothes I have, because I keep on making these loans from the borrower, from the lender, from the oppressor. I automatically become a borrower. We have people in Africa, including young people, by the way, shoes even wore out, yet they still owe those. So you are wearing something that you still owe. People who eat food that they are owing, yet they can plow and eat what they produce. So until we reach that point where we agree as Africa that we have people like you, Dr. Susan, we have people like King Joshua Mabonga, we have Dr. Uma, we have your Prof. Lumumba, and all those prominent leaders, and we learn from them, and we absorb as much as we can from them, and we take action and sacrifice for them, so that the next generation grows up with full consciousness of what African identity is, of what it means to be an African, and what it means to take over, to overthrow the system.
Wow. I mean, I'm just speechless, because exactly, I am so I'm delighted. I don't know, I'm lighthearted today to just see you, Longo, talking, I mean, what did I want to say? You're just putting the right thing in the right place. I bring back this point. Teaching is one of the fundamental principles that we have to engage in. That's what we do on the Pan-African Daily TV every day. Teaching ourselves, our identity, our culture, and what it means to be African. Just the conversations that we're talking now is a teaching, where we all sitting now like in a classroom strategy to ask ourselves, who are we? And so all these conversations is not a debate. It's not I don't know, you're all teachers, and in your generation, at your level, you're coming here to teach us exactly what we've been talking about. And so it's a kind of, we need to go back in a classroom format where we sit and learn, like what we're learning from you today. I want to really, really thank you on behalf of the Pan-African Daily TV and all those that are watching and actually commenting positively about you. You are marvelous. You're amazing. You're just sent. You're a blessing to this generation. And we are very confident you're going to take it. You're going to manage it. Now, I want to come back to one other very important issue. We're talking about motherhood, the need for our mothers to step on board. Tomorrow, we're going to have a very special conversation on the case study of Southern Cameroons, where the mothers called the Amazons that we all know. They're all over Africa. But we're taking a case study of these warriors' mothers that stood up in the face of the liberation of Africa. Now, when I talk about that, I want to come back focusing on South Africa. We look at Mother Winnie Mandela. That is one of the issues that really struck me when Julius Malema came up and had to commemorate her, put her again on that. Because up to now, we only had heard about Madiba. Nothing was actually pushed in the front that although Madiba was doing all that, there was a queen warrior that stood every day as a frontliner. Nobody would say anything about her. So we're going back into that session to see the mothers that actually fought for the liberation of Africa. They were not even men. I mean, when I say it was not even men that stood those battle line front, or men played a role. But why is it that these heroes, I did not say women, I said mothers. And I strategically used the word mother. And I will be saying from the Pan-African context, today we're talking about women and leadership. We never had even that. It was an issue of motherhood. And when a motherhood is reinstated, then you can begin to see what the role of the mothers are in the liberation movement. Now, if I take the picture of Winnie Mandela, now I bring it down to you and to see you as that warrior. Now, does it resonate with the reason why we should take back? Because motherhood has everything to do with teaching, communal, and mothering, caring, nurturing for the future. What is your take on that?
That's very deep. And I just love how you refer back and bring it down to Wednesday. And that was one Lema took, and we recommend him for that, because like I said, our history, and as young people, that why was Winnie Mandela divorced from the first place? Again, it was from the role of motherhood. A mother that has so much conscience, so much empathy, so much courtesy, to come back and say, my husband, father of my kids, you are not supposed to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But for political gains, they had to maneuver to ensure that there is this separation so that they can achieve their own goal. So people like Winnie Mandela are one of the women and the mothers. I love the motherhood phenomena, because it's deeper than the word woman. That the mothers we reflect back. The motherhood is important for us to actually reflect back. And what is very interesting is that if you look at the household alone, and you find the father, you find the mother, you find the kids, and typically, so maybe you find even the nan, an employee or something. Who is the government in that household? You discover that actually the mother is the government in the household. And if you go further to evaluate using the reference of Mzilikazi Africa from the book of Nothing Left to Steal, that the father is actually a politician going out to meetings, to work. The child is a union demanding, I want PlayStation, I want clothes, I want this. The nan or the cleaner is the working class, because they actually do the actual work in the household. And even in some scenarios, you discover that there's actually even the newborn baby that you call the future. So then we begin to redefine. So what is actually politics? And why was politics brought in our household or in our society? And you discover that so much has changed. that in the same household that I'm making an analogy from, the father tells the mother and the child and the working class and the future that, or the newborn baby, that I'm leaving, guys, I'm going to a meeting, I'm going to work. He leaves. At the point that we think he's going to the outside room where the worker stays. The mother that we define as the government in this analogy and as the future is asleep. The union or the normal child that demands a lot, that we define as a union, is asleep. And what happens from that analogy or that scenario? Then the newborn baby starts crying, as usual, as nature, that newborn babies cry. And the newborn baby starts crying. Now the boy, or the 10-year-old boy or the 15-year-old boy, wakes up to stop the newborn baby to stop crying. He discovers that the newborn baby is not stopping to cry. So he assumes that, okay, you know what, let me then wake up my mother because she's asleep. But where's the solution? Then this child says, you know what, let me call actually the worker, the nan, because that's actually her work. But as he leaves the house to go to the outside room, the child opens the door and he discovers that the dad actually didn't go to a meeting, actually didn't go to work. The dad is busy messing around with that nan or that worker from home. Then the newborn baby says, in the morning, or then he comes back, wakes up the government, the mother wakes up the government, so that the mother makes sure that the newborn baby gets quiet. Then this child says in the morning, Dad, now I understand what politics is. Politics is when the government is asleep, the politicians are busy messing around with the working class, the future is crying, and the unions can see all of this but can't do much about it. That is what politics is. And that is what has redefined motherhood in our society today.
This is deep. So the motherhood represents the sleeping, government, which is governing. Governing means they're the ones that are taking care of home affairs, the country's affairs in the
And I
ability.
want to emphasize on this point. I want to emphasize on this point that the same motherhood, you put mothers into a one room now, one office room or one meeting room, and you put 10 women or mothers in that room with only 2 fathers, and you decide to start a trust account or whatever, or business, and you ask them, or a political party for that matter, you ask them who should be the chairperson or the CEO of this organization we're starting now. It will be a mother that actually says, this father has a potential.
Thank you.
That mother will not nominate mother. So we are asleep. And we need to wake up. Equally so as young, who keep crying. Remember my analogy, the future. We need to stop crying. We have been born. We are here now. We must stop crying. We are old now. We must take over.
Ashe. This is hot. You're watching the Pan African Daily TV with Nhongo Solo, live from South Africa, the biggest voice and the future of the Africa that we want in South Africa. You all heard that the government structure. And one thing, even though she was interrupted, she made an analogy that I think Nisha and I, or Pan African Daily, we've been reflecting on how we're going to start this program with the motherhood and the teaching of ourselves again. And she said it very clear. If you put 10 women in the room and just two kings are there, or the queens there, and you ask to vote, it is the queens that will vote the king. So something is not adding up among the motherhood. What is it that happened? What was stolen from us that even the trust or the ability to come together? But like I said, tomorrow we're going to dwell on this case study where the liberators they stood together and they challenged the governments and they did everything. They had methods where they could, do a sit down strike and collapse those systems. If our mothers would be conscious and wake up to their responsibility and not sleep, like you said, I think we would be waking up. Yes, but of course, how do you leave a government in the hands of, like you say, those who mess around?
Janja.
It, Nongo, can you use the example particularly of corruption? And that is why I find motherhood a very important topic to start addressing in the new Africa. Why? Because we saw this collect and these unions and the managed funds. Never did we hear, even in the history of leadership on the continent, that women embezzle through corruption. Am I right?
Completely. And the biggest question that adds to what you're asking is, how do we then begin to fight the struggles when we are failing to fight the weakness in us?
Correct.
And so until we get to a point where yes,
You're amazing. Just go ahead. You are amazing. Go ahead.
yes. So until we get to a point where we do that introspection of our own weaknesses as individuals and begin to impact ourselves as individuals, then maybe we can then impact the next person, then the society, then the country, then the continent, then the world at large. And who knows, even the space, we can even, the cosmology, we can even impact. So corruption is a seed in an individual before it becomes institutionalized. It takes a briber, then a bribee, a corrupter, a corruptee.
Yes.
So it's in that pattern.
This is powerful. I can guarantee you, if I'd announce this show and say King Maponga Joshua was going to be here, we wouldn't even have space here. But because we talked about Nhongo Solo and in the face of a mother, and you can see the audience, it's already start from how we orientate what we see and what we expect to be taught. It's feasible in science and everything. I realize when we have mothers here, the turnout is not as good like when we have men here. So it's an orientation thing that we need to correct. We need to correct that. I mean, from both sides, this balance of the principles of Ma'at, we see how our men or our women have been cheated. We unconsciously been cheated, and we don't even realize that the balance shifted. Right. Let me pick up this call. I think there's a thing that is really bubbling to talk. Hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, you're connected.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Tata. Um, good evening, family. Good evening, Sister Nhongo. And thank you for this platform. I really love this young woman, and I'm very proud of her as a mother, because I think we have done well as a mother, as mothers. We have done well, and I love the way the way you are thinking, Miss Nhongo, the way you are being groomed, and the way you are moving. I have a few things though that I would like to say, and maybe to ask. I am not a politician. I am a mother, and you, as a young woman who is in Africa, who knows about all what you know, there is something that really kind of amazes me about South Africa, because South Africa is known for music. South Africa is known for dance. South Africa is known for culture and arts. We have so many young South Africans who can compose a song in 2 days of Corona being declared a pandemic. You can have a hit in 2 hours. I, however, have not heard what you are doing as an advocate to integrate the musicians. You don't need the big ones, because the big ones they've got 2 big heads, but the smaller ones, to educate them about what you know, so that these borders can be dismantled, and so that I'm sure if you integrate them, I don't know how you are going to do it, because this is your age group. If you can reach out to these young musicians and all these young comedians that we see on YouTube who are acting and all this about work or whatever, love and this and that, if you put it in about decolonizing your minds, you young people, I think it will take you a step further to achieve what you are trying to achieve. Because we as mothers, we have done enough. You know how to cook pap, and I am sure when your mother was teaching you how to cook pap, which is like fufu, ugali, or whatever, there was no measuring spoon. There was no scale. Most of the time, it was a little stick hitting you on the head, and a lot of screams and saying, put the water, now put the fire, now, no, you're not doing it, but you get it. That's how we do. We mothers teach you, and now you know how to cook pap. And you don't need as mothers again to be teaching you how to serve it, because you know everything. And something that I want to say as a mother, not as a politician, because I don't want you to bite my head off. I know that the news is not really flowing because we are being put in a very, very small space so that we do not share the news. I don't really know what's going on in South Africa right now, but I know that there's a huge community of Zimbabweans there, which is the same people as South Africans, because we are coming from the same family. And I don't see, because if I say I don't see, but I would like you to reach out to this community and teach them, because they are also on their own and trying to make it, but they cannot make it when you don't understand each other. And the other thing that I'm just going to say really quick, the African Union, that you are saying, oh, the African Union must do this, and our president, there's nobody who is going to do anything for you, because we have given you enough education and you have a platform, and this is your time as youngsters, because you are going to be the next president in 4 years.
Yes.
And you cannot expect any president to change anything for you.
Correct.
So you need to get that you should be getting into those parliaments. You should be getting into the African Union Parliament for the young people. And this shouldn't be done by academics, because academics, they are actually, for me, academics, they're the worst. But those young people from the ghetto, the township that you grew up from, those are the people that I personally, as a mother, would want you to reach out to.
Mm.
Because when you get those minds to your friends who are impregnant, hanging on the streets, on drugs and this and that, when you get to them and speak to them in the street language that they understand, you will make a revolution which is stronger and faster than going to the academics and all those who've got degrees and stuff.
Mm.
And then there's something that you mentioned about Malema, because you asked to comment on Julius Malema. As a mother, not as a politician, because I don't know the politics in South Africa, but I know that I've been following Malema from the time he was really young. Yes, there was a time when he was about, let's grab the land, let's get these people out and all this. But when you watch Malema, Malema is growing. He is growing because he's got mentors like Mari Chuombori, like Joshua Maponga and all those. He is changing, and he cannot be always wearing the overall for years, because he has done it. He has shown you, the young people, what to do. And now he has moved on. Look, now he is in the Pan-African Parliament. He cannot be wearing overalls all the time. Now it's your turn to educate other young people to put on those overalls and whatever you are trying to achieve, because you cannot be stuck in that moment forever. That's my own opinion. I don't know the politics, but that's my own opinion as a mother.
Okay.
Because what we want to do is to grow. And what I like is that you do recognize these things and say, oh, we have to stop crying about all these things that we are baby. Yes, stop crying about those things.
Mm.
Now you know what you need to do, and you have it. And there is no government, and I always repeat this phrase, that there's no government that has been designed to make you rich, to prosper you. The government has been designed to control you. And if you want a revolution, you have to gather the minds that are being controlled and to teach them, to decolonize them, so that you'll be able to achieve what you are trying to do, not to wait for anybody. There's nobody, no minister in there who are sleeping, who's going to come and say, oh, by the way, yeah, I think you guys, you need freedom. They're not going to do it.
Okay. Thank you, sister. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Let me pick up the next call. Maybe if there's some questions that are the same, then we could all both answer them.
I can hear it keeps beeping.
Yes, it's connecting. Just hold on for a second. Yeah, there are calls that are coming. Interested in your conversation and to see someone like you for the first time articulating like this, we're getting to know you. It's a wonderful plus to us. I think we lost that caller. Yes, your reactions to that, you have all it took. And now I also think even if we taught you everything, you still need the support. You're not going to do it on your own, taking into consideration the present situation. Over to you.
I completely agree. I'm not sure if I got it right that she's coming from Zimbabwe. But if she does come from Zimbabwe, or if she is coming from Zimbabwe, I plead, please vote for Maponga, King Maponga Joshua, come national elections as your upcoming president. Very interesting points she's raising. Our culture in South Africa, our art in South Africa, our music in South Africa. And I want to expand it further.
Solo.
Our sports.
Solo. Okay, just hold on. Let me pick up this other call because the lines are breaking. These are the callers that want to ask, so you can join everything. Hello.
No problem.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
This is Adam Muhammad.
Thank you for calling, Adam. Yes.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for having me this time. I really appreciate the young girls who's a good idea. Really, I appreciate her so much. In fact, I don't listen to all the program, but I will start talking from where I listened.
Mm-hmm.
We are grown up. We have to stop crying. We have cried for 400 years. Nothing come out. We are blamed for almost 65 years. There's nothing come out.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing with the cry we can give anything. The only way is we have to actually listen to each other closely and get advice to each other and see way forward how we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Africa cannot perform with the crying, with the begging. A rich continent become a poorest nation in the world, which is not logic. We keep all our life blaming only for wrong thing done. Really, by the blaming and complaining, we are not going to change anything. We will going to change ourselves when we initiate to do something practical. Africa is not lacking anything. Africa is not poor. Africans are not poor, but Africans are disorganized. We need to organize ourselves and work together for our potential future. If you realize all African, we are working for the people. Women, men, children, leaders, all of us, we are workers of people.
Mm-hmm.
We are fighting, saving the people's life.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are fighting for the crumbs of the people. We are giving people our jobs. We are giving people our ready money. And we are waiting them to give us back as a crumbs. Mm-hmm. Simply because we are keep all our time on blaming and fighting for people to sustain people's life and killing ourselves for nothing. We need to think wisely. When we think wisely, what we can do to change, rather than who is doing to be criticized. Who is doing, even if it's small, let us support and advise to do more. But if we keep crying and complaining about the things and we don't have anything to give, there's nothing new we are going to get.
Mm.
65 years, all African countries, they got their independence. Because of we are not thinking wise, we are still all nothing. Even the technology, whatever we are using, we are just working for the people who own nothing. We spend a lot of money to export from out, and we spend a lot of energy to work to export our raw material.
Mm.
Where are we going to get our money? Where are we going to get a job? When we will advance? It's the right time for us to stop crying. It's the right time to stop crying. It's the right time for us to start working and think, what can we do? And listen to each other closely and think wise. That's what I can say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. That was powerful contribution. And I think this is exactly everything that we're saying is just what these are the challenges that we're saying, but the solutions is what Nhongo is presenting to us here. Back to you, Nhongo.
No, thank you so much to both the callers. I appreciate it's actually what makes us grow at all times. And I want to combine my answer to both of them. I think there was a smaller common element that spoke about education and government not being our solution, but us being the solution. I think that's very interesting. I think the first point of departure would say that I think that the first caller said, You've done enough to give us education, and we should make use of it. And I understand we're in different countries. And if I got it correctly, if she's in Zimbabwe, I must allude that education system in Zimbabwe is proper. But come to South Africa, do we have education or do we have schooling system? And I want to highlight that in South Africa, we don't have education. We have a schooling system. A system that makes you move from one grade to another, from another grade to another, and another grade to another, with no practical knowledge, no practical skill. You come out of that school system, you still don't know how to drive, as basic as it is.
Yes.
You still don't know how to build any particular thing. You still don't know how to manufacture. You still don't even know how to sew, not even know any practical thing. So in South Africa, when I think at this point I want to bring it to context, there is no education. There is a schooling system. So I completely agree that the previous generation did their part, but it was not enough because we're not totally liberated. And I emphasize that we need a generation that will sacrifice total liberation through education as a fundamental liberator. Then I the point that says it's important for us to discuss globally. I'm to the second caller. Yet I agree completely. It's important for us to act locally, which is what he emphasized the most. That people are now suddenly people are now relying on grants. I think that was the most important factor he raised. That is a system. That is a deliberate. The government imposes school so that remain to become useless. Unemployment, obedience of a grant. And
I think, we might not be able to have full access to what she was about to respond to that. Yeah. She's just frozen. No sound. Yes, I hear you, Ayoka Efwa. No sound from her side. But do you hear me? Do you get my own sound? My own sound. Do you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Efwa. Thank you, Leo. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right. Nhongo, I think she mistakenly muted herself. She mistakenly muted herself. It's unfortunate. Nhongo, I will have to call her if it's gonna go through because she's on mute. We can see it from her end, but she doesn't even understand. She doesn't understand that she has accidentally muted. I hope we'll be able to connect to her on call. Oh, it's unfortunate. Yeah, so okay. Yes, unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. You're muted. We can't hear you. There's no sound.
I noticed I'm mute. I noticed I'm muted, but how do I unmute myself? Okay.
Just click on the button. You see the unmute.
I think I'm good to go.
Okay. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. So go ahead. I think the audience should be able to hear you now.
So do I go back in like answering the questions, or that was captured already?
No, that's not captured. We went to a place where you were talking about the education, that is a schooling system and not an educational system. Of course, that it's applicable on all the continent, which people will learn and have a degree and don't have a handwork. They don't even know the minerals they're sitting on. And then they would dive and die at sea crossing to Europe, which people, if they actually were educated. So go ahead.
Exactly. That's my biggest point. Actually, education system. We have a schooling system. For as long as we graduate or go out of school, and we're still unable to deal with pandemics, we're still unable to produce organic food, organic clothes, we're still unable to deal with to bring in our African context, then it's not education, it's schooling. A schooling system that just takes me from one grade to another, and from another grade to another, without giving, I mean, a simple basic thing that I go out of school and I don't have a simple driver's license. That's my ambition, is to be an Uber driver, or is to do logistics. But I don't have a simple typical thing as a driver's license. So I wanted to answer the caller from that level to say we appreciate the struggle and the work that has been done by the previous generation. But I want to argue that we didn't get liberated into education, but into a schooling system that only makes us obedient slaves, where we take instructions in a better form than we did before. And so when we speak of education and schooling, I want us to differentiate in that sense. But also I wanted to combine what the second speaker spoke about when he emphasized on the fact that we are now relying on grants. And I want to bring it back to the first speaker to say the main reason why we are now relying on grants is the lack of education we have.
Correct.
Because the schooling system's intention is to make us dumber and more obedient slaves, so that we get excited over grants and continue to be dependent instead of being independent.
Correct.
I think that is an important point. And if COVID-19 did not teach us better, that our government, and I want to bring it to a South African perspective, would give me as a young person, unemployed young person, 350, but will give a student at a university 7,000 just for starting teaching. 7,000. Yet the same government cannot give us free education. It's a lesson as an allowance. At the same time, the very same government is saying minimum wage is 3.5. Where's the logic that? How do you give an unemployed, still studying person 7,000, and you give a person who's unemployed with a degree 350, and you are saying that another person who's employed with a skill must qualify for a minimum wage of 3.5? To me, it doesn't make sense. So it's true that I like what the first speaker said, that the government is just trying to control. And one of the biggest reasons why I'm contesting local elections is to emphasize the fact that we are thinking globally, but we must act first locally and expand from there on. And I'm saying, while I'm contesting the level, that it's your right to vote. Let me first put it this way. It's my right, my voice, my faith. That you need to believe that it's your right to vote. And that your voice is your vote. And that your faith is the substance of things hoped for. And therefore, after voicing your voice through the vote, you must then see what you hoped for. And so it's important that at the time that we achieve at local level, where charity begins, we then begin to expand at the state level or country level, and then go further to a continental level, and furthermore at a global level, where we begin to think for us to act. So what is important, and I want to come back to the first caller who said, as South Africans, we have a culture of music, art, and I want to even add sports also. Have we, as young people, we grew up listening to meaningful music, where a singer is singing meaningful content, where we got conscientized through music and art and sport.
Yes.
But today, let's make a practical example. Yesterday, we had an event as young people. We had performers, and unashamedly so, I would say, that we had performers who performed meaningless songs. Songs without content.
Correct.
And I agree, we have to come back as young people and speak about the art that we produce today, the music that we produce today, the sport that we do today. Is sport producing the same energy that it was producing long ago? No. Today's sport is a competition, a division, a content of what the colonizer did to us, that don't have fun, don't recreate, instead compete against each other. The content of music today is all about division, who's making up or down, and all about the swearing words. Where is the content and consciousness in it? So I completely agree. We should never limit our conversations at just a political level. In fact, even those things are at a political effect. So we should come back and question even the poem or the poets that we have. What are you producing in your content today? We are in a desperate need as Africans to produce so much content that in every area, aspect, arena, we need to conscientize each other. We need to educate each other. And she spoke about African Union. I think we need to get to a point as Africans that we're at a point where we are brave enough to point out African Union is useless in our society, in our continent, even for Africans in the diaspora. What they normally term it as a useless dog or a toothless dog. We need to get to a point where we question why African Union only has elders, yet we have countries like South Africa that has policies that says when you are 60, you must resign or you must retire. But we have parliamentarians who are over 60. We have people in the African Union over 60. Are we not contradicting ourselves? But who's at the blame? The very same society that is voting for these people and keeps saying nothing about it. The very same unions, going back to the analogy I made, who can see all of this but can't do much. From the very same point that we are advocating for African identity, yet we are failing to regulate. From the young people who keep on trying, yet they are not only killed by the government, they are killing themselves through ignorance. Everyone has a role in Africa. And until we begin to realize that we need to unite beyond our political identities, beyond our political colors, beyond our political philosophies and ideologies, then maybe we can start to have a progressive conversation of how we as Africans can actually become one, where we take off our regales and become Africans in a true sense. Africans who actually believe in organicity, Africans who actually believe in natural resources, Africans who actually are the idea holders, though they may not be executors at this point. But until we get to that provocative conversations, honest conversations, where as young people, we don't just go out to drink and smoke, but in our own spaces, we talk about these things without getting bored, then maybe we may take our continent somewhere. And if we want to discuss the issue of capitalism, of economy, of race, then we need to begin to question whether is it race struggle or is it a class struggle.
Wow. This is quite interesting, and not only interesting, but it's mind-blowing. I can really confess that. Honestly, Nhongo, you are an ancestor, and we still need to know where a lot of people are asking, oh, is she a mentee of Maponga Joshua? That you sound everything like, yes, you've been groomed, probably not just a mentee, but of course, you already had it. You had to just come out of it. And I saw you on the podium and even at the book launch of Maponga Joshua. And actually, like I'm saying for our viewers that are just joining us, it was actually King Maponga who referred us to host her and to give her a permanent slot on the Pan-African Daily, because she is truly the warrior, and she will take South Africa further. Yes. So absolutely, dear warrior queen, we're so proud of you. From us on the Pan-African Daily and all your viewers that have been following you, everyone is just saying we're behind you. Everything that you've said, we really cannot disagree enough.
Thank you.
Particularly, you are not just a talker. You don't just speak. I see your groundwork, mobilization, industry, talking to young people, talking to mothers, at events, at occasions. You staged a powerful show yesterday for June 16th, Soweto Massacre. And it is marvelous what you're doing out there. And we must actually recommend you to say, even though you know, but we're still here. We're still here, like you said. It is a time for us to teach and give over, to advise. So you have all our support. You have your wonderful slot on the Pan-African Daily TV. It depends on you when you want to use it. If you say, I'm taking twice a month or once a month, you have to look through your calendar and we'll be available for you anytime. So what is it that you really want us to know at the end of this conversation before? Are there some upcoming events? How do people get connected to you directly? Are you on Facebook, on WhatsApp, or what is the current state of your activism right now?
So I want to emphasize to young people that not only do we promise to do things, but we are doing things already. And not only to young people, but to the society at large. We have programs like agriculture. We have land. We are doing agriculture. We are farming. Please come to play. Stop wasting your energy just only in striking. It's your right. We don't disagree. But if you have an energy to go and strike and throw stones, then you have enough energy to carry a spade and plow. Please be more productive, impactful. We have another program where I'm not sure if this problem is in the entire Africa, but in South Africa, we have a drug called Nyaope that is killing so many young people. And we discovered that these young people are actually intelligent. They're actually effective. They actually have an energy to carry recycling material to a scrapyard. And what we are doing at the state is that we are using the scrapyards as a halfway house, where as they come, we give them support psychologically. We assist them in getting rehab houses, but most importantly, we are teaching them that actually recycling can also produce electricity. It's another topic about ESCOM and its failure and its governance and its looting and its privatization. And we are saying, let's produce that which we can. But not only that, we have so many programs that are up and running. Please get in touch with us. My WhatsApp number, because I'm in South Africa, it's of course +27. Then it's 84 759 8235. So I will repeat. It's +27 84 759 8235. My social media page is Facebook, which is Nhongo Solo, as it appears on the screen. You spell the name as Nhongo, and the surname is Solo. We are calling both the young and the old in our continent and even in the diaspora as Africans to unite. Please look beyond the surface. I like what my mentor says. King Joshua Maponga. He would say, for some of you guys, you take a taxi, you get to Carlton Center in Johannesburg, and you arrive there, and that's your destination. And others will take another taxi and go to Ekurhuleni Airport and take a flight. And from that, they stop. But others will continue to take a flight and go to Cape Town and land, and some will stop. But others will take then a boat and move and go to another place. And I'm pleading today, can we not limit ourselves to just that first transport, and we land and we become comfortable? It's not enough that one and you go to primary school and then to high school and then to university and then you get married, you make kids, you work, you die. It's not. You are born for a purpose. Discover it. Discover yourself and be fruitful. Multiply. Fill the earth. Subdue it. Look at the spaces, the past, the present, and come with future solutions. Look at the culture of Africa. Why was it distorted as far back to the culture of the West, of the North, of the South, or of the East rather, and why we're here as Africans? How can we begin to rebuild Africa, and each generation must then discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it, like Fanon would say it. And we declare that some of us are prepared to sacrifice. We just need people who are prepared to work with us, prepared to learn from the wise that is sent from those who are watching our future, currently leaving us in the present, coming with the solutions from the past. And we can always do what they can do. If not, we must always do better.
Wow. Oh my God. Now you can see me. You see the smile gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That is the gains when we come here in the Pan-African Daily TV family and hold such conversations with young, energetic, teachers who begin to teach us what we forgot. Nhongo, you are the president, the future, and I'm talking in the nearest future of South Africa. It is upon you. It is seen in you. It is given to you. It is smelt upon you. It is felt upon you. And you have all our support. All. I want to challenge you before you come. I want to give you a responsibility or, yes, a role that you have to play before when you come on our next show. The entire African or your sisters and brothers in the diaspora are watching you, and they'll be watching this conversation again. I know a lot of them are at work. Some are also on other commitment. They always come back to watch the shows after. I want to thank Patrick. I want to thank.
I couldn't also share on my Facebook.
Yes, I know you're going to get it.
So they will watch later.
Yes, we're going to reproduce the link again, chop up all those places that we lost contact, and then we do it a flow, and then we can integrate even your works that you've been putting out there, and then we premiere it again. It means we put it on live again, because this conversation is a classroom, and we need to listen and listen and listen morning, afternoon. It's a food, like King Maponga said. It is our food that we eat morning, afternoon, evening. And so there is no stopping. There is no, we are going to resist and resist and resist. Doesn't matter. You would see me here with my gray hair, with my grandchildren sitting here doing what I'm doing, because it is the time of sacrifice. It is that moment. We're too comfortable doing things. But the assignment I wanted to give to you, my queen, is you have to make a business plan for the diaspora. A business plan for the diaspora. Where do you see them coming, bringing their skills? How can they be useful to the kids of Soweto, to your projects and your community? You understand the country you want to build. Now you want to get your diaspora back. What is it that you can offer to them? Most of them, everything that you're asking, your children that left long ago and were hijacked into slavery, they have everything. They have that knowledge and skills. And you, like the mother of your people out there and paving the way for this generation, you need to make a trade-off by providing on the next. Where is it that they can invest on the continent? You already brought a very strategic point. We're talking about education. Now we're building Pan-African Institute for Africans by Africans. Exactly like what we're doing is the institute that we actually will be putting all these lectures on that platform where people can access audio and also visuals, all the conversations that we've been hosting here or producing like this ones. So, but the next step is people need to travel first, maybe come in, you put accommodations. What are the periods to travel? What are the projects you want them to visit? Now it's like you are getting your diaspora, like your investors back, or your partners or your brothers to come, and sisters to build that system. I want our next conversation to actually flow in this direction. Where should a diaspora looking to come back on the continent invest? What sectors are available? What is the possibility for them to come home, feel secured, have the confidence to reintegrate into the community? I need to get that, if it is possible, that agenda for you. It's your country, like I said. All the damages that you're looking for, you have to put them in a business plan and bring it to us next time. So thank you so much. Our leader, our elder, though in a young mind, you're an ancestor, I can already tell. And we have a lot of them. We have a lot of you out there that are just still, you came back in the young format, and we're calling you the youths, but you actually came for a purpose, and that's why you're doing what we're doing. So we officially recognize that you're one of them, and you're just here for that purpose, and you will deliver. You will deliver. There is nothing. You already are sure of it. And that's why you can stand and challenge the status quo with no fear or favor. None. But we also have to agree that not everyone is an ancestor that came back for a purpose. No. Some are still on their first journey, and they will sleep and pass on before they even understand what is going on. So thank you so very much, Queen Nhongo. We would see you very soon on the next assignment when you're ready. I already see Maponga saying she would come on live with you at a convenient time, because the world needs to know who you are and that you're actually called for that purpose and that journey. So thank you so much, my queen. Yes, we'll be connecting with you to take it to that other level very soon. Okay.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you for the platform.
Yes.
Thank you to all the audience that were listening. And I completely agree. It's a lot of us out there. We just need a platform. We just need to find a way to unite, to combine the energies that we have. And one thing I like is that there are so many people who speak about young people as the future, yet practically they are not giving us that platform. So we appreciate people like you, Dr. Susan. We appreciate people like Dr. Maponga, who in practice actually gave us the platform. We surely wish to deliver. We need your shield. We need your mentorship. Like I said, we appreciate potential leaders like Bomalema, who we need to combine, and we need to be mentored, and we need to be driven, and we need to be protected. We need the shield. We need the anointing, and we need all the knowledge and the wisdom we can ever consume from you. But I plead with the young people that we have already been dealt with through drug and alcohol abuse. Let's not cheat. And through that wave of COVID, it's apparently now killing us. So we are being killed twice. Let's not kill ourselves further through ignorance. Let's use this platform to actually energize and combine ideas and meet and bring about solutions. I will continue.
Aluta continua. Thank you so much, Ashe. Wow, Madase, asante sana to you. So good night, my queen, and greetings to the continent, and we'll keep in touch as soon as possible to have you again. Give us that business plan and way forward. Yeah, tukupagojama. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Wow. Okay. People, thank you so much. Thank you for all your support. Our biggest sponsor, Leo Wright, thank you so much for your daily contributions here. And yes, it's like you say, watering the plants to grow. I want to come again with the announcement of today that our sympathies are with the people of Zambia and Africans on the continent and in the mainland for the passing away of His Excellency, our elder, the eldest Pan-African, Dr. Kevin Kaunda, who passed on today to join his ancestors in the land of his ancestors. So yes, we'll be doing a memorial and an eulogy about his work and his engagement as a way forward for the young people and the young generation. Yes, we all regret his transition, but as we know, we lost these leaders, but we gained the ancestors, particularly if they die in the liberation and the mindset, they are already back here in other formats. We all know that. So this program is going to be Sunday on the topic of countification of Africa, just like we did Magolification of Africa. Yeah. Tomorrow we're going to have motherhood case study in the struggle and the liberation according to our mothers, how they fought and how they're pushing forward. Saturday is going to be June 10th, where we're all commemorating the end of slavery officially, but we have to end it in our minds, and we pick up the battle, like our daughter just said, to educate and unite ourselves. Unity is not just by word of mouth, unity is by action. So when we get engaged and do projects together, that's already a symbolic sign of unity. So you don't speak unity, you just do it. The moment if we engage here every day, we're already united, right? So these are all the programs that will be coming live on our way. And like we said, we're still working on the Pan-African calendar. If you have a suggestion on which day we should name after who, we talked to the Kunta Kinte family extensively last night with Usman Toure, who connected us to the successor of the foundation of Kunta Kinte, and they're also coming up with the Kunta Kinte Day. So now we have the Magolification Day. Now we're going to have the Countification Day, and all these ancestors that have gone before us, and the present one, we want to come out with a Pan-African calendar. And so, like all we've been saying, now we celebrate non-Pan-African dates and days, and still part of the brain drain and the mental colonization of our brains. When we start looking and orientating ourselves to these days and officially declare it our national days, and we respect it as Pan-Africans, I think we're taking that unity into action. And it should be a global day. Now, I want to make it very clear. A lot of people, we keep saying, oh, the government has to endorse it. No, we are the government, and we will endorse it and we will keep it. Doesn't matter whether there is one person from each country. It is a global celebration of this date, and we're going to make it and keep it. Okay, and own them. Nobody's going to do it. We are going to do it. So we see ourselves tomorrow on this special edition with Dr. Ya Kilo, educating us from this case study of motherhood and the liberation of Africa as a case study and way forward. Yes. So we see us tomorrow, same time. Asante sana.